Hello and welcome back to the track. Today we're asking a very important question that Ferrari fans have been asking themselves for the past 2 decades. Can they make it back to the top? Before it lights out, do the usual, subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below. Do they need a full reset or do they have a chance to do something this year? Maybe, just maybe. Because last season, let's just say they set the bar low.
Is there a leakage?
A leakage of what?
I have the seat full of water. Like full of water.
Must be the water.
Let's add that to the words of wisdom.
Imagine having to drink coffee out of this because somebody thought it'd be a funny Christmas present. We need to win. Look, with the expectations being rock bottom, there's a lot of good interest behind what they did. But if they want a realistic shot at a title and more than just let's just get a couple wins this year and maybe we'll go for the full thing next year. No, nope. Good drivers, good team, and a good car. That's it. We'll compare Ferrari to Mercedes, and I say comparing in quotations because while yes, they set the benchmark and the fastest times right away, that clearly didn't mean anything seeing as how Ferrari ended up setting the fastest time at the end. The copium, but hear me out. Let's rewind Barcelona. Right away, Ferrari learned something critical. Reliability. Haas ran the entire day without a single hiccup. That is a good sign. Because reliability gives them the freedom to stop worrying about it, they were able to start focusing on speed. Now, when you compare that to Mercedes, George Russell even said on the first day he went out on that track, he tried to extract as much performance as he could out of that car. Mercedes were quick immediately, but that meant that at some point they had to pivot to long runs at some point. Ferrari didn't. They got all that info from Haas by running 100 laps. So they already know that their engine isn't going to grenade. Even Lewis said something interesting compared to last year, which he openly called one of the worst experiences of his life. The car might be looser, but it's also easier to catch, it's easier to control, and easier to understand. Now here's where I think it gets even more interesting, because I think Ferrari have been chasing the flashy news lately. They didn't chase the glory on day one. They chose data. I think this is finally what they've been needing to do. When you look at the numbers, Mercedes ran like 1,100 laps. 989 laps is what Ferrari ran. And the next team was 622. That is not a small gap. That is an entirely different testing program than everybody else had at that point, besides Mercedes and Ferrari. Ferrari had a reliable engine, stable car, no major issues on day one, and ultimately the fastest time. They left that track being the fastest car there, even though Mercedes showed up and were like, we're quick. We good so far? Or is it still copium? Because I think this is all proven data. So on paper, they have a good car. So far, so good. But now we get to the weird, interesting stuff. Ferrari are using cylinder heads for their engine and other teams are using aluminum. And at first I thought maybe they're bringing some sort of WEC structure over to F1. Because if we're being honest, Ferrari's actually a very successful team everywhere else except where it counts, which is Formula One, the pinnacle of motorsport racing. I thought at first maybe they're just taking some success from the WEC to F1, but there wasn't really anything I could find that said this is how they make the car in the WEC. But it's something that I want to keep an eye on because I do think it's being overshadowed by what Mercedes are doing. I think everyone is so caught up with the whole 16:1 ratio or 18:1 ratio and the engine when it's running versus when it's not, that not many people are paying attention to what Ferrari is doing. And they tend to be sneaky. Let's not forget 2022. You know, Leclerc can do it. He just needs the car. They have the drivers. I'm okay. But I couldn't find anything that said, yeah, they're taking this from the WEC to F1. So just keep an eye on it for now. Is it illegal? Maybe, maybe not. Interesting? Maybe, maybe not. It won't be interesting until it's interesting. Or until they get caught. We'll see what happens. Maybe nothing comes off of this. Let's talk about Lewis Hamilton, specifically when it comes to the driver's part of things, because I genuinely think that communication has been an issue for him. Listening to the radio messages, there's confusion, not because anyone's incompetent or they can't do their job, but I just think that their chemistry didn't match right away and they couldn't find a rhythm that worked for them. Lewis has never had a problem with Bono. Bono. That partnership was seamless. His current race engineer, Ricky, has been proven to be good. He's worked with Vettel and Sainz, and they both praised him as being a good race engineer, but just because he's good doesn't mean he's the right fit for Lewis. Who Ferrari fits Lewis with is going to be a crucial point into how he performs, I think. Maybe a happy Lewis equals happy team sort of situation here? I don't know. Having to adapt to a new team and communication in a new team just adds an extra layer of difficulty, but As a foreigner, that's just all I can really say on it. I know what it's like to struggle, so. But the last part of copium, or data, whichever you want to see it, Shell has been doing what F1 is doing this year with IndyCar since like 2019, I think, or like 2020. And even though it doesn't translate to be the exact same thing, having a similar fuel system isn't necessarily the perfect overlap, but it's something that they're familiar with, and familiarity can lead to a lot of success in the long run. On its own, it's small, but when you add it to everything else, it starts to stack, and the grid isn't getting any easier. Now, Fernando Alonso has an Adrian Newey design, and he doesn't miss twice. We've seen what he can do no matter who the driver is, and I think that makes for a very dangerous Fernando Alonso who's close to retiring. Maybe he wants that third title. And you also have to consider Williams. They were in 3 podiums last year. That's a big deal. Most teams by that point had stopped their development into the 26 car, but so had Williams. When you had Sainz and Albon with the Carlos Sainz effect, they're gonna compete for a lot more podiums this year. And that's gonna throw a pebble, a rock, a gust, a wind, whatever. It's gonna mess up that first, second, and third place fighting for the championship. And you also have Red Bull, who, well, they have Max. So I guess the car doesn't really matter if it's good or not. And you also have all these rookies who were actually good rookies. Every single one of them scored points last year, except for Colapinto, I think. But now they're gonna have more confidence, more experience, and an even playing field where every car is starting from zero. So if Ferrari can read that and see the opportunities and strategize perfectly around those things, all of those tiny things that add up to a championship winning year. So if Ferrari can capitalize on all of that, they have the reliable car, they have the fast car, they have a strong engine, new talent, stable foundation, a hungry Leclerc, a hungry 7-time Louis Habibi, and maybe, just maybe, if every little piece fits into the puzzle just right, bam, we can win. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If I'm full of shit and just trying to convince myself that we're gonna have a good year again, or maybe they actually have a chance. But until then, at the end of the Barcelona test, they had the fastest car and the most reliable car. So, and they already have the drivers. I'll say bye.